everyone, my name is Carly and here is video 2 of my end of the year videos. This one is going to be my best and most surprising reads. It's a mix of the two in that some of these were my best reads of the year and they ended up being the most surprising. Because I felt like if I made 2 different videos for this, they would just end up being 2 of the same kind of video, so I figured it would just end up being, I would just kind of mix it together, though this is ultimately a best reads of the year for me video. All the books shown in my thumbnail are not all the books that were considered my best reads, because I do not actually own all of the books that I consider to be some of my best reads of the year. The list, the order that these are in is not indicative to, I'm not putting them in any certain order. This is just literally the first book I'm going to mention is my best book that I read first in the year. And the last one that's going to be mentioned is one that I read more recently that I considered best. Hopefully that makes sense. Without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. Again, I have a whole list. I made lists. Okay, so, going to start out. I'm only holding one of these. Because, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine it's the Raven Cycle. All 4 of them, I reread all 4 of them this year, and all 4 of them, honestly, were just as amazing the second time around as they were the first time. Therefore, it might be a little cheating, but I did read all 4 of them. They are my top favorites. Like, they are in my best. They were some of my best reads for the year. Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I don't know how much more I can say. It's just a magical, fun journey. I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing. I just love the story. I love these characters. I'm like so sad that this series is only 4 books long. Like, I just speed through them and I get so caught up in the world and all the characters, and like, yeah, it's amazing. I love it. Another favorite that I read earlier in the year, but I loved, was The Night Circus by Erin Morganstern. I've talked about it quite a bit on my channel. I do have a whole book talk on this. I will leave that link down below, but it was just so magical, and her writing was so, like, I felt very, like, dreamlike. Like, it just flowed very well, and, like, I wanted to know what was going to happen to all the characters that were mentioned, because nothing was really mentioned just for the sake of mentioning. Like, they all had a part kind of to play, and I just was always intrigued as to what part everybody was going to play in this whole story. So it was so good. Another one. This one kind of falls under the most surprising category, but it is The Unexpected Everything by Matson. This is a contemporary read. Again, I do have a book talk on this that I feel like kind of sums up my feelings on it very well. I really liked her writing. I really liked the connection I had to all the characters, that it felt very real in terms of the relationships and how kind of healthily they were portrayed. And yeah, if you're looking for just a cutesy but also really good contemporary read, I highly recommend this one. And it had like a little synopsis for her newest book that should be coming out maybe within the next year or so, that I am super excited to read. And while I didn't want to bring out all 4 of the Raven Cycle, I did bring out both 2 of the Trials of Apollo series by Riorden. Again, kind of falls under the most surprising category for me as well, because I had some issues with, I think, the Magnus Chase series and just how I felt while reading it. But these ones I read and was instantly just like, this is peak Rick Rowell. This is what I love. I'm loving the characters. I'm loving the story. I love all the like cameos from all the characters from other series that he has written, and I love like the new characters that we were introduced to. Again, I have a book talk on these 2. Again, that'll be linked down below if you want to hear more of my thoughts. But in general, I freaking loved this series, and I cannot wait for the next one. I just, yeah, and I also find these covers to be absolutely, like, beautiful. I love it. I'm going to say that about every book I mentioned, because I love them all. They would not be on this list if I did not. The next one is one I do not have. I borrowed it from a friend, but it is Fangirl by Rowell. Once again, I have a whole book talk on this book, because I just loved it that much. But I loved, like I kind of falls under the same, the unexpected everything. I love the relationships, I love the characters, I love just how they were written and how believable it all was. And I mean, if I can get me some Levi, Levi was a fave. One of my favorite, like, love interest male characters I've ever read, hands down. I loved him so much. Next one is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. As I was going through my list of books that I had read through the year, really the ones I chose for my best were books that really stood out to me. Like, there was a lot of good books on my list, but I didn't want to list all the books. I really wanted to list books that stood out to me. The books that, as I read those names, I went, oh yeah, that was a really good book. And so, while I like the Mistborn trilogy in general, I gotta give just the very first one as one that was a real standout for me. Again, I have a whole talk on the trilogy, but this first one was so surprising to me in how much I ended up liking the little sample I read before I bought it, and then I just, like, could hardly put it down. And this is a very dense, and, like, look at how tiny this all is, and, like, how thin these pages are. And this is like, it's like a 600-page book, but again, it's very tiny writing and it's very thin pages. The fact that I was very entertained the entire time I read this, and that it really has stood out to me as, like, a very surprising but a very good read. I can say something about this. The other two were not bad, but they didn't hold up to the first one in the series. So that's why the first one in the series is on this list, but not the others. The next one is The Queen of the Tearling by Erika Johansen, and I do not have it because I borrowed it from my library. I've read The Queen of the Tearling and The Invasion of the Tearling. I have not read the third one because my library does not have it. I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I loved, again, just reading the characters and just the world it was in. I had some issues with the second one, which is why, again, only the first one is on this list, not the second one, and definitely not the third, because I have not read the third. The first one was just so great to start of the series that it just made me want to read more, and I still want to read more, and I really liked it, and I'm trying to figure out how to get the third one into my hands so I can read it. Next one, again, do not have because I borrowed it from the library months ago. It is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I feel like this one comes as no surprise. This one was just, I think, on the top of, like, everyone's list, or at least when it first came out. It was so good. It was so powerful. And I just feel like it really, like, anyone who read it would be able to take something from it. It was just magnificent. Yeah, it was so good. The next one I do actually have, and it's going to be the third Magnus Chase, a book by Riorden. So the first two didn't necessarily wow me, but when I read this one, I was, like, really into it and really into the characters and the relationship between them. And so maybe I just need to go reread the first two, but this one really surprised me with how much I liked it and how much I was rooting for the characters. So that's why I have the third one on my best list, but not the first two. But yeah, it was so good. I really liked just the portrayals of all the characters and the relationships with each other, and it's really more into the story than I had been in the previous books. And finally, the last one on my list, I literally finished a few days ago, and I kind of debated putting it on this list or not, but ultimately I've decided it should go on this list. It is Wolf by Ryan Graudin. December has just been a hard reading month for me for multiple reasons, so I went to the library trying to find some inspiration, and this was one of those books that just, like, while I was standing there in the library looking at the shelves, I was like, oh yeah, there was a World War II racing book, and oh my gosh, I should see if my library has it. And my library had it, and I bought it. I didn't buy it. I got it, and it just, like, defied my expectations. Like, I'd gone to the library hoping to find something kind of happy, and I wouldn't necessarily call this happy, but I was definitely intrigued by the story, and I loved, like, the story and the characters we did get to know, and, like, every time I went to read it, it was like I instantly was in this world following these characters, and I could not wait for what happened. And it always sounds bad when you say I skimmed the last few pages, but I, like, skimmed the last few pages because I was like, what is going to happen next? And it ended, and I'm just like, I need to get my hands on the sequel ASAP because I need to know what happens. But it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. So there's that. My favorite and kind of most surprising books that I read in the year of 2017. What were some of yours? Were there any of those? But yeah, if you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys again soon. Very, very soon with another video. Bye.
No, no, no.